Welcome to the Humanities Team podcast with me, Steve Farrell. Humanities Team is an international spiritual movement whose purpose is to communicate and demonstrate the timeless truth that we are all one, with the divine and all life, caring for each other and the world we share, so that people's actions reflect this profound understanding within our generation. We believe that living this truth is essential to resolving the most chronic and acute world challenges and vital to creating a flourishing world of peace, harmony, and happiness. We offer transformative education programs in personal and spiritual development, and we host an annual event called Global Oneness Day. Similar to Earth Day, which galvanized the global environmental movement, Global Oneness Day has become a catalyst for spiritual activism and an integral part of the present-day global oneness movement, which represents a profound new paradigm in human culture. Humanities Team is the only global nonprofit organization working in transformational education. Since we are a nonprofit, there is no focus on growing profits or satisfying shareholders, and 100% of all revenue goes toward our work supporting conscious evolution, planetary awakening, and flourishing at every level of life. If you'd like to learn more about us or want to support our mission directly through donation or volunteering some of your time, please visit us online at humanitiesteam.org. And lastly, if you enjoyed this podcast, we'd be grateful if you'd leave us a review. Humanities Team convened the very first Global Oneness Day on October 24th, 2010. We had about 1,000 people with us on a dedicated conference call line. It's grown over the years into this almost week-long program of activism and celebration that now involves over 100,000 people participating from all over the world. Humanities Team works year-round to plan and host Global Oneness Day. Now, I'd like to welcome my special guest to this opening ceremony, Neale Donald Walsch, the author of the Conversations with God book series, and Karen Noe, the author of We Consciousness. And welcome to Global Oneness Day, Neale and Karen.
Thank you very much, Steve. Lovely to be here, especially lovely to be here with Karen.
All right.
So happy to be here, too.
Wonderful to have you here with us. And so we're going to talk, of course, about our oneness with the divine, each other, and all of life, and the invitation to live into the unity of all of life. And Neale, if I can come to you first, what does the Conversations with God series say about the statement, we are all one, and why is this important?
Well, it tells us, number one, let me make something clear. It was the very first message I received in 3,000 pages of the Conversations with God dialogue. I recall it vividly. I think it's on page 2 or page 3 of book 1 of 9 books, covering over 3,000 pages. And after I was told that we are all one, it was made very clear to me in the dialogue that this is the single most important message that Conversations with God has to bring us. And that, in fact, to make the point very clear, God said, you really don't need anything else, don't need to hear anything else. Because if you decided to actually step into and live the idea that we are all one, if you decided to embrace that notion and demonstrate it as part of your lived reality, you would have to worry about nothing else, because everything else largely would take care of itself. Because you would then suddenly be taking care of yourself, all other people you know, all the people you don't know, the whole of humanity, and in fact, the earth on which we reside. You'd be taking care of all of it just in the same way that you take care of yourself. Now, for some people, that's not even saying very much, because we don't take that good care of ourselves. So I think that what I learned from Conversations with God is that we are all one becomes powerfully important, both to us individually and to us as a collective, because it invites us to take care of ourselves, of all of ourselves, and to do so with love, compassion, understanding, awareness, forgiveness, and a sense of who we really are, a sense of our divine nature. So when we say we are all one, what we're really saying, and this is what's incredibly important and incredibly powerful, is that not just that we're one with each other or with the birds in the sky or the fish in the sea or even with the planet. That's all true, but it says much more than that. What God is telling us with the statement, we are all one, is that we are one with everything, and that includes the aspect of life that we call divinity or God itself. We are told in Conversations with God that we are all individuations of divinity, or if you please, singularizations of the singularity. If there was any more important message for humanity to receive at this point in time, I can't imagine what it would be. So I've been traveling around the world and so happy to take part in this Global Oneness Day celebration to help everyone understand that if we could, in fact, reduce all of the messages of the Conversations with God books, which have reached something like 15 million people in 37 languages, if we could reduce those messages to one sentence, it would be that we are all one. And if we could embrace that notion and put it into our life as a lived reality, everything would change virtually overnight, globally and locally, even in your own house. So I invite you all to try it and live into it and see what that does for you, and see if we can learn how that can be done. Is it possible? Is it humanly possible? Karen knows all about that because she's written some wonderful, wonderful material on that very subject.
Ooh, let's breathe into that here for a moment. Take a couple of conscious breaths into what Neale just shared. Beautiful and of course true. Neale, thank you.
Oh gosh, you're welcome. Thank you.
So Karen, I'm going to come over to you. What does, and Karen's the author, as I mentioned in the introduction, of We Consciousness and other books. And so Karen, what does We Consciousness mean when it says the most important thing is that we are all one? Why is that said, and why is this important?
Okay, let me begin by saying everything I'm saying is exactly what Neale just said. And let me briefly tell you how the We Consciousness started to come through me. A few years ago, after bestselling author Dr. Wayne Dyer made his transition, synchronistic events connected his family with myself. And the first of which, I was sitting on a bus. I was ready to speak about life after death in Orlando, Florida, right after Dr. Dyer made his transition. And right before that, they were going to have a tribute to Dr. Dyer. So I'm sitting on the bus, and there was one seat available, which happened to be right next to me. And in walked Serena Dyer, which is one of his daughters, and the rest is history. So right after that experience, he started to come through with very profound messages for Serena and the rest of his family, 6 of his children and his wife. And the bottom line was, they knew without a doubt that his life continued after the physical body passed. One such message was at the very moment that his daughter was ready to give birth. He told me to call his daughter Serena at that moment, and I called her, and she wasn't answering the phone. And he said, "Call her again, call her now." And as I'm calling her, her other sister answered the phone. And I said, "Just put the phone next to Serena's ear, whatever she's going through. He wants Serena to know Daddy's there, Daddy's there." So, to make a long story short, they knew without a doubt that life continues. But let me say, right after that, he was so excited to talk about the afterlife. And he was so excited to talk about the we consciousness. The we consciousness is the interconnectivity of everyone and everything. The most important truth is that we are all one. And our oneness encompasses our oneness with God, with the angels, with ascended masters, with enlightened beings from other areas of the universe, with deceased loved ones, with all animals, with all of nature, and it oftentimes my clients and friends, they say it's difficult to understand this oneness when we're here in the physical body. But I tell them that it's very important to meditate and quiet your thoughts so that you're more on par with the energy of who you really are. Those who've had near-death experiences, those who have been clinically dead and come back to life to talk about what they experienced. They talk about going through a life review where they're able to see and feel how they have affected each person they encountered in their lives as if they are the other person. The reason is they are the other person, and they're able to feel that connection in an instant because their body is not separating them from anyone else, right? So we want to bring that connection here on the physical plane. And another point of the we consciousness before I end is our connection with God. God is within every one of us. Just as Neale said, we are magnificent beings of light and love. And we can create amazing miracles in our lives and in the world as well. The only difference between miracle workers and those who are not are that the miracle workers remember who they are. That's it. So let's bring that into our lives right here and now.
Remember who we are. We're the divine miracle workers, and we can create peace in our lives and in the lives around us. And remember that whatever we do to ourselves or another affects the whole.
Wow, beautiful, Karen. So let's just take a conscious breath into that. Beautiful. And thanks for also sharing the story about how we consciousness came into being. It's an extraordinary story about how Wayne Dyer and other St. Francis and Ascended Masters were involved in bringing this important message that's the very same message from Conversations with God to the earth. So I'm going to add a little here just for many Global Oneness Days, many of us that are viewing the program are, I'll call it seasoned people on the path. But for people that aren't seasoned, we're not, when we talk about living, about awakening oneness, about planetary awakening and oneness, we're not talking about creating something new, about creating a oneness that's not here now. We're not talking about that at all, because this is actually ancient wisdom. It's a timeless truth that goes back over millennia, and almost all sacred texts, including the Bible, reference oneness. As well, science has affirmed this spiritual wisdom, starting with Erwin Schrödinger in 1933, who was the Nobel Prize winner for physics, who shared quantum physics, thus reveals a basic oneness of the universe. And then many contemporary scientists who've made it their life work to talk about this, about our oneness, this deep interconnection, or sometimes they'll call it entanglement, but also oneness. Nassim Haramein, a physicist, Greg Braden, Bruce Lipton, a biologist, Lynn McTaggart, and many others that are in most of our communities that write books, give lectures, etc., to talk about the oneness in all of life. So oneness is actually ultimate reality. Now, I'm not asking people to make that leap if they're not there. It's a truth that we have to feel into, to go within and to see if we resonate with this, with what we believe is ultimate reality, oneness. And then if we do, if we resonate with this message and we believe it's true, then our invitation is each of us in our own way to live into the unity of all of life, to live as an expression of oneness. And where Neale was talking about the example of how we're actually taking care of the world around us, because that's our true self. That's what oneness means, right? Is a self with a capital S, where we're actually cells in the body of the earth or humanity or even the cosmos. And healthy red blood cells carry oxygen around to the body. And then we can come into more elevated roles where we're even more than just carrying a little oxygen around to the earth. So, but that's our invitation, is to feel into what is our particular expression of unity, of oneness. How might we live into the unity of all of life? What does that look like? Because when we're in oneness, it says that we're eternal and we have unlimited capacities or potential. And why would we want to live as anything other than that in some false reality of separation and the old American dream, etc., when these are just illusions, right? So that's the invitation here in Global Oneness Day, if it resonates, for us each to live into the unity of all of life, to be an expression of that, to follow our soul's calling, to focus on the evolution of our own soul. And in doing so, we'll create an incredibly powerful invitation to all those whose lives we touch. Okay, so I want to thank so much, again, Neale Donald Walsch, Karen Noe, and viewers for joining us for this opening ceremony. If you'd like to receive all of our new podcast episodes, please click on the subscribe button. To find out more about Humanities Team Transformational Education Programs and about how you can help support our mission, please visit us online at humanitiesteam.org, where you can also sign up for our email list so we can let you know about our free online events and other news about what we're up to each week. And again, if you enjoyed this podcast, please leave us a review. Thank you.